Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm in my woolies today.
Oh, is it cold?
2 degrees.
2?
Yep.
Oh, what's it here? It's about 17, I think.
Oh, nice. Is my internet? Oh, yes, it is on the right one. Okay. Just noticed it was a bit laggy. Yeah, well, obviously it's only 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nice. Well, it's clear, which is why it's so cold. Ugh. So, how are you?
Oh, good. Bit exhausted. Just been to the gym.
Oh,
I feel good, but I feel quite tired as well.
yeah, I know that feeling. Actually, I meant to just get a wee bag. I must have slept funny and I've got a funny neck. Oh, it's so sore. And you know when you're not used to getting aches and pains?
Yeah.
And then you get them and you're like, this is shit.
It's crap.
Yeah, no, it's like, I don't want to have that. I'm going to get a hot wee bag soon and go, ooh, I did some stretches. Yeah, I went for a run this
So
morning.
you're wearing some Kiwi gear?
Macpac? Is that Kiwi?
Yeah.
I've got lots of Macpac and Kathmandu. I've got
Good.
more Macpac now than Kathmandu.
So you buy it over there?
Yeah, there's a shop just up the road. It's awesome. And I'm on their mailing list, so I know when they have their 50% off deals. So I have it for hiking gear because it's so handy. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yes.
Right. So today we're doing aromatherapy.
Aromatherapy. So the key kicker will be staying on time.
Okay, let's get rolling then, eh?
All right. So let's go. Woo. So that's my little signal.
Hello, morning, Vicky.
Morning.
And welcome everyone to today's podcast. I'm very excited because it's our passion subject. Woo!
Yes, yahoo.
Being aromatherapy. So I could talk for hours probably, and you're probably the same.
Yeah, so we'll try very hard to stick to time and not bore you to tears.
How can you be bored with aromatherapy? I think there's so many more people coming on board now, isn't there, with aromatherapy?
Yeah.
A lot of it's kind of become trendy again.
Yeah.
And good thing or not, I'll probably go for not, but you know, there's a lot of multi-level marketing aromatherapy, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but what I mean by that is there's a lot of different people selling it and advising the wrong way to use it.
I think it's as you train as a beauty therapist, as an aromatherapist, you get to know all the contraindications. And so you're very aware of the implications of toxicity. And just because it's a natural thing, aromatherapy, doesn't mean it's not harmful in high doses. And I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? With probably non-experienced people advising, but not cautioning in the right way, or treating in I wouldn't say malpractice, but not in that it can be harmful. It can be
it can be very harmful. For instance, you can cause, miscarriage. You can even abort.
Yeah.
You can actually do things like, burn your esophagus, let alone you can actually do organ damage. And someone said to me not long ago, tea tree, and he was actually saying, I think it should be banned. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? And he said, oh, you just see tea tree everywhere, and there's like a tea tree range of products. And did you know that it's so dangerous? And he had a bit of a farming background. And I said, well, yes, I do. But obviously, we would prescribe it in safe dosages. He was telling me how the cows actually eat tea tree leaves when they want to actually abort.
Right.
When something's not right.
Yeah.
And so that's quite incredible, really, isn't it? How nature just knows. And they wouldn't eat it any other time, but they know when there's something wrong with their pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's what they have to do.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of really marveled with nature. It's just quite incredible.
and animals, that instinct, isn't it, of something's not quite right, and there's something around in nature to actually.
They know exactly which plant to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, something like tea tree, probably most people know it's really good for acne and that kind of stuff. But yeah, as we just said, it can be very dangerous as well. So most essential oils are very dangerous if they're used in the wrong dilution. And I'm just not for people that are saying, you know, use this and take it internally. I mean, we trained for years, and, you know, like, to take essential oils internally is a whole new study. I mean, how it enters the body and what it does is it's kind of like swallowing a really full-on medicine, basically.
Yeah, I think that needs to definitely be under the supervision of a qualified aromatherapist if you're going to do that. And I'm sure it's still like that in New Zealand and Australia here. The regulations, if you're an aromatherapist, is that we cannot ingest essential oils. Now, I know in Europe it's slightly different and they have different rulings, but they have specific rulings on how it's ingested and at what dilutions for what conditions.
Yeah, and again, they've got to be prescribed by a qualified aromatherapist, or they even have aromatherapy doctors over there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've talked about aromatherapy so many times. We've probably included it in a lot of the other subjects. But I use it every day. It's a given, and I assume you do as well.
Yep.
For example, today I'm working on my cellulite.
As you do.
I kind of have a little giggle to myself because I've kind of put on a little bit of weight, which I kind of knew I would around winter because I was just eating whatever. And I've noticed that I've got a bit of cellulite. So it's quite good because I'm my own guinea pig, because I've made this really awesome body moisturizer. And what I've got in there is sage, black pepper, and ylang ylang.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really yummy, and as you can imagine, it helps to not only my voice is about to go, disperse kind of cellulite and fatty tissue. It stimulates circulation, it stimulates your lymphatic drainage. So it basically, I'd say it conditions your body and kind of even makes it firmer. I've got all these other yummy kind of plant extracts as well, which I won't go in because the subject is aromatherapy.
So sage is really interesting because that's really cleansing too, isn't it? So it's very purifying and cleansing. It's like a blood purifier too. So remembering essential oils absorb through the skin and then travel in our bloodstream for up to 48 hours, don't they?
Fantastic, yeah. And I think we've also talked about the experiment, I think we did it when we were training, was if you put a drop of peppermint oil, rub it into your feet, in kind of 10 seconds, you can taste it on your tongue. So when you think of that, how it does absorb into the tissue, it gives you that indication that you've got to, use it with caution, but how it does actually get into the body. So there's no need to actually use it any kind of higher dilution than what we were already doing.
Yeah.
And what kind of I've noticed with a lot of clients, and I'll see what your clients say, is they find most of the talk out there is, well, it is getting trendier, obviously, but most people, if they're don't know much about aromatherapy, think it's just nice smells.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of trying to educate people that it's just so much more than that. Like they don't kind of get that essential oils are in there for much more than the smell. I think most people think that it is just a mood thing.
Yeah.
And so this is what I've had to be big on educating, because of my range is kind of skin and self-care. And so obviously being an aromatherapist, that's the number one thing that's in there. So I'm trying to really plug that aromatherapy is just so much more than beautiful smells.
So if you were to, just to interrupt, sorry, if you were to say to someone, what is aromatherapy? So they get the right classification, because I think that's the other thing, is it's been marketed, anything with a fragrance is aromatherapy, which is incorrect. Would you agree?
Oh, totally.
We're going to get on our high horse here.
Yeah.
Fragrance is fragrance. Essential oils are pure essential oils, meaning they're distilled from a plant, flower, bark, wood, seed, something from nature. It's distilled into a well, you can describe it, Bronwyn, you're probably better with words on that. A liquid or an oil.
Yeah, so what happens when you put the plant, just kind of get back to basics, is you put the plant in one side and you heat it, like the leaves, and the essential oil isn't water soluble, so you'll get the pure oil come out one side, and then you'll get the water components out the other. And the water component is what you call your floral waters or your hydrosols.
Yeah,
which
is beautiful.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. And I use them in my range because they've got so many medicinal properties that people don't realize as well. And the essential oil is the really potent oil that you get the other end. Now, it's different from carrier oils.
Yes.
Carrier oils are is kind of like, you can imagine, say, something mold up, and then that seed or whatever becomes an oil. Think of avocado or grapefruit or almond. Whereas it's totally different, because I had someone say something the other day and I thought, oh, they don't realize the difference. They just think it's
right.
Plant.
I never thought of that. So a carrier oil still has minerals and vitamins in it. So example, almond oil, if it's been distilled correctly. That's another story. We won't go into too much detail on that. And then you've got your essential oils that you put in your carrier oil, and that helps it be in the right dilution for application on the skin. You can use things neat in the bath, because obviously you've got a high concentration of water, so it is diluted.
Yeah. With that, I would just caution people that, because like I was saying, they're not water soluble, you'll find your essential oils will float to the top.
Yeah.
So it's good to actually add like a dispersing emulsion. And I do that with what I call it aromasol. And so that just means that you've got no danger of, say if you put
sitting on it.
Yeah. Well, say if you put birch into your oil, which a lot of people know birch is very good for the muscles, but that will actually burn the skin. And if you put it in with other essential oils into a bath and they float to the top, you've got the danger of actually having contact with the skin rather than it dispersing into the water. So that's why
I've actually done that myself. I've used lemongrass because, of course, great for muscles, but I would normally disperse the oil. So I choose some oils, then I put them in the bath while the bath is running. And then, so of course they come to the top. I normally just, like shake the water to split them all up. So they're much more smaller particles of floating essential oils, if you like, on the surface. But I hadn't done that day. Big lesson. So they were probably big bits. And I sat down, and you can imagine I must have sat right on an essential, like a lemongrass blob, right on my nether regions. Very sensitive. Sure. Whoa, that was very burny.
It's a good lesson, isn't it? Because when you use them all the time, you get a little bit blasé. Because I would say we know what we're doing. And when I've heard that lesson, Vicky, I'm wondering a bit.
I've never forgotten it.
It's a good lesson to learn. So to give people a bit of an indication how potent they are, when they're mixed into skincare, to actually have that skincare registered as a legitimate skincare, or kind of, like a comply to all the laws, you know, even cosmetology and the fragrance laws, you can't have a blend in a skincare range any higher than 2%.
Wow, yeah, that makes
So
sense.
when you think of that, that shows you how strong they are.
Yeah.
And you probably do the same, have taken some of my blends. If I'm blending something personally for a ailment for a client, I've taken it up to 10%.
Yeah.
What about you? What would your dilution be?
Yeah, I would say if I'm treating something specific and it's more bacterial, you know, that kind of thing, I would take it up to 10%, but that's it. That's it. No higher, because it's just so potent and you forget.
Yeah. And most of my blends, I would say, that I mix for people would be probably about 5%.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine, the rule of thumb is if it's a baby under 6 months, don't use any essential oils. If it's 6 months to a year, I think it's about 0.5%. And then a toddler is about 1%. And also the elderly, and if there's any skin problems, you know, like real open wounds or psoriasis, or you know, there's a lot of precautions you've got to, which obviously makes sense to us, but and I think if you were someone that had something like psoriasis, you would stand on the side of caution to put essential oils on. You would either, you know, you would get someone, a aromatherapist, to prescribe something for you, I would imagine. So I guess most people will know what my big stint into aromatherapy I got myself off my asthma inhalers.
Yep.
With my breathe and relieve balm, and that was up to 10%, but sometimes I would go to a 5%, because if I was really quite fluey, I'd rub it on my chest. Was one of those areas that my go-to, and I found the skin got quite sensitive there. Right. Because I was putting it on kind of twice a day, and even though it was working really well, my skin couldn't take it. So I found if I put it on the soles of my feet or on my back, it could take the 10%, but I had to kind of go down to like a 5% dilution because I was getting quite sensitive. And you can imagine if you're sensitive internally, you know, like you're actually all inflamed, it's going to react onto the skin surface. So that's kind of one of the things we take into consideration when we're prescribing for clients.
Yeah. I guess so. So my journey into aromatherapy was quite different. It wasn't from in a way it was quite different. It was about myself, because it always seems to be about yourself, doesn't it? So I trained as a beauty therapist, but what I noticed in clinic and also in myself was the more stressed people were, the less self-care actually worked from a beauty therapy perspective. Yep. And in fact, you know, like people come in for facials or a massage, and if they were totally stressed out when they came in, you could only kind of get them halfway relaxed on the way out, because they'd just click straight back into, you know, the stress mode. Yet if you had essential oils burning, because that's all we did in the clinic in those days, if you had essential oils burning, they would be more in tune, and then they would relax more because it's much faster having an effect on the brain and those moods. Yeah. So I started to look into aromatherapy a little bit more, and decided that because most women that I was seeing were stressed out, and I myself was going through a bit of a stressful relationship kind of issue, I decided that was a good way to look. And then I was blown away at the science and the everything. So it's a 4-year diploma, isn't it? So it took me 4 years to do my aromatherapy. I don't know about you. I obviously was doing mine part-time because I was working.
Well, Well, I got into it from a beauty therapy point of view as well. So I was starting to dabble with it in my salon, and I started to realize that I could take my clients to another level, like what you're saying. And I, even way back then, I was actually making remedies because I was so into it. And I was guided through a company, so I kind of knew what I was doing. And I added, but I was really frustrated because I wanted to add it to what I was doing with beauty therapy, but there was nothing around that was good enough for skincare. And so I kind of made balms and that kind of stuff. And I did massage, and I introduced it to my clients that way. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And I used it on their face for when I was doing, say, something that needed a slip.
Yes.
Like
massage or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even clients were quite blown away by it. So I thought, this is so cool. I'll go and study it and get myself and my mum off our inhalers, and be able to make blends and know what I'm talking about and be qualified. But
yeah,
that's when my mum.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because as I kind of did my study through the aromatherapy side of things, and of course we're working. By then I had left my job of beauty therapy, and then I had my own salon. So what I noticed was, and I did a lot more psychosomatic aromatherapy. So and that there is the dilution is less. So you're using a far less concentration of essential oils, because you're working on a bit more of that. So I call it that mind, body, soul connection. So it's a little bit more on moods, triggering different belief systems. What are our normal patternings? And that integration between, like, for example, bringing in other modalities, but this works really well with essential oils, is like if you've got a sore back, so someone came for a massage and it's the top of their back on the right side, but they're left-handed, so typically that would mean their left side would be more tight. There might be something like they're holding baggage on their right sides, and it's a male person. So you've got all these kind of interrelations going.
You mean with the mind?
With the mind.
Yeah.
But then you use male dominant or
you're getting serious now. Yeah.
I know you use male dominant or yang energy essential oils, and it actually helps to release a lot of the triggering or the patterning that our subconscious is holding on to. It's a very technical way. That's kind of how I work. But the result is you can get really deep results with very little essential oils for this profound healing and relaxation and de-stressing is essential.
So, yeah, I mean, anyone that obviously is into holistic would probably agree with us that what's happening in the mind is related to the body anyway. And, if we go, steps further, because we can actually read the face with beauty therapy and stuff.
Yeah.
So we kind of get into the organs and all that, but we won't go into that too much. But so if someone came in to see you as an aromatherapist for an aromatherapy treatment.
Yeah.
So take us through the process that you would do.
So I actually don't do aromatherapy massage anymore, even though I'm using essential oils. So I do chakra massage. So I would, I check with the chakras. So I use a little crystal and see what chakras are out. Then I use essential oils to balance those chakras. And there are certain energetic oils, so essential oils that hold the energy of that chakra. And so then I use those oils to make a blend up, and then we use it to massage. So that's how that psychosomatic side of things works a little bit more. And that's just what's kind of evolved for me over the last 30 years. So it's probably quite different to how you work with essential oils.
So do you actually do a consultation?
I usually, yes. In the beginning, the first time I see a client, there's always a full consultation. But then subsequent times that they're coming in, I might not do a consult because I'm going purely on what the chakras are telling me. And then as I do my chakra testing, I'm asking them stuff.
So all the client knows is that they feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And you go from the different chakras that way. Or
Yeah.
would you go from, okay, they've got digestive issues, so it might be, you know.
So what I might do is say, is there anything you want me to work on today before I check all your chakras? So I do get a bit of feedback in the beginning. Oh, I've got a sore back, or I don't feel so great, or I've had a big workload. Might be stress related, but you can hold stress in so many different ways. And this is where the chakras are really good. So then I will do the diagnostics, where the chakras are, unbalanced, balanced, how balanced they are, because there's a bit of a pattern. And then use essential oils. But I'm guided a little bit so I will talk to them as I'm doing the chakras and say, this means this, what's going on around this area. For example, base chakras on how we feel grounded in our physical body, but maybe to the earth, to what's happening in our life right now, patterns, routines, all that kind of stuff. Maybe they've just flown somewhere and they're feeling really disconnected because they've been here and they've been working, and they come back and they've been working and they haven't had any home life.
So you've got to ground them.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, grounding oils would look different, so I might use sandalwood, ylang ylang, some of those kind of, and male and female yin yang stuff, so that we're getting grounding from both sides. And then there might be something else that's out, like throat chakra or something.
And so then you might add different essential oils.
Yeah. So I usually would blend between 3 to 5 essential oils, but not more than that. And quite often only 3. So a top note, middle note, and a base note.
Okay. And so the dilution will be about 5%.
Yeah.
And is that someone that's coming just for a massage, or would you kind of have that same kind of, order for a facial as well?
I don't know. Facials are different. So facials are different.
Yeah. And
so I did go through I do an oxygen facial. So I go through that. Then I pressure point. So I do all their nervous system points. And then I'm making up an oil. So it's probably less of a dilution with the face.
Yeah.
And it's usually a bit more, because I see mainly women now, depending on their age and if they're going through perimenopause, it'll be something to do with what's happening. And I would have spoken to them for the whole facial up until the massage, which I do last.
Right.
I don't do it in the middle of the facial, which is the traditional way. So I do all the, cleansing, exfoliating, then I do the oxygen serum. So we serum, oxygen. So that's getting vitamins and nutrients in. They're already relaxed by then. I do the nervous system check-in, get them to breathe, and then I'm making the oil up and then massaging. So it's kind of the last thing.
Okay. Because do you find that a lot of people that just come in and they're very stressed, they don't really know what they need?
No.
And so that kind of system would work really well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and that's probably how I've defaulted over time to, like people used to come in, oh, I'm stressed. And it's like, well, how do you feel stress? So, oh, I might get tight shoulders. Okay, so let's do a back massage, back, neck and shoulders or whatever. But from a practitioner perspective, it's too broad even then, but they can't get more specific to choose oils from, I found. Like, until you get to know them and their personality, how they, are they a nervy kind of person? Are they chilled, but they've got a big workload? that kind of thing is making a big difference.
Yeah, great. That sounds awesome. Wish I could come for a treatment.
And I know you work completely different, which is why it's quite good to talk to both of us.
Yeah, so what I do, obviously I've got my own range.
Yeah.
So I've blended this range, or these set of ranges, from the 30 odd years in clinicals and knowing what people want. And they're made up of 3 categories. So they're skin, scalp, body, mind, mood, spirit, lifestyle and environment. But you can imagine they all cross over. Give you an example, the best one to make people understand is, say, like my breathe and relieve. That could probably be under any of those categories. but it's under skin and scalp body, because primarily when I use it on the body. I could vaporize it, so it could be in my lifestyle environment. Also say I could use it for colds and flus, but it's in my skin, scalp, body.
Yeah.
You can also imagine in that blend is chamomile, German chamomile, manuka, and lavender.
Nice.
And so what it does, it actually calms and balances the nervous system. It actually has got the mucilaginins and the antivirals, and it's got the kind of the chill factor, so, and anti-anxiety. So because you can imagine if you can't breathe, if you get anxious, it's going to exacerbate the condition. And so you need to calm the person right down. If I took that blend, I could also use it on the skin.
Yeah.
Because you imagine all those essential oils that are in there are calming. So it's going to calm the surface of the skin as well.
Yeah.
So you can also see from what I just said, not only is it getting into the lungs and calming physically the nervous system and the taking down the anxiety, so it's going to have that same effect on the mind, right? So say if someone came in and I would do a full-on consultation, this is if they didn't necessarily know what they wanted. I would go through all the systems and obviously ask them the questions of what's their, the main thing they want to get out of this consultation or today. And it mightn't be anything to do with asthma, but it might be that they've got sensitive skin, but it comes up that they've either got asthma or they've had the flu or whatever. I could use that blend.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works. And then I've got ones like, so the skin, scalp, body are kind of in a coral coloring. The mind, mood, spirits are in a mauve coloring, and then the lifestyle environment are in a green coloring. So if someone just came in and it was purely for mind, I would probably go for one of them, which are more specific for the mind, like chill pill, which is take it easy, unwind and relax.
Yeah.
Clary sage, mandarin, and lavender. Nice. So it's got those kind of relaxing oils. The breathe and relieve one does, but it's more for relaxing the nervous system and having all these other properties to it. Hopefully that will make sense to people. And then if I take that and say a similar blend to breathe and relieve, which is in my lifestyle environment category, that one is the clean and clear. So that clears the ear and the skin and mind. But it's got sage, pine, and eucalyptus. Oh, no. So it gets rid of negative energy. So I could still use it on an asthmatic. I could still use it on a acne skin. I could use it to uplift the mind, but it's more categorized for the lifestyle environment.
And that's a really awesome one to use full moon and new moon for cleansing auras and energies.
Yeah. Well, I was talking earlier how I use the awakening, which has got sage, black pepper, and ylang ylang, and that's in the mind, mood, spirit. But I used it in a body moisturizer for cellulite, but it's actually
sandalwood's really good for your skin.
Yeah, so it's actually, see how they all cross over?
Yeah.
So the reason why I did this is because you can imagine there's thousands of, well, Vicky, but I'm talking to you, but our listeners can imagine there's thousands of essential oils. And so it was so time consuming. As a aromatherapist, we had to kind of narrow it down because quite often there's hundreds of choices we could make. And if the reason why it's called aromatherapy is you've got to like the smell, right? Because let's take lavender. If I had a lavender in your blend and you're telling me that you hated lavender, so I would go into the psycho of why. And you might say, well, as a young child, I fell over a lavender bush and I was getting chased by a Rottweiler and it bit me. Right. So that
Former.
lavender, when you smell that lavender, it's going to give you this really frantic, anxious state. So because I do what I do, I think, that's a challenge. They need lavender and I might hide it in the blend and then they're fine. But that's kind of a brief of how aromatherapy works, if that makes sense. There's all these properties, there's all these beautiful smells, but you as the client have to love the smell.
Yeah.
So you imagine if I put lavender on you, and everyone knows lavender is relaxing, but if you hated that smell, every fiber in your being is going to be fighting that. So it's not going to relax you.
Yeah.
So we would, and we're talking singular oils.
Yes.
I'll get to why we blend them in a minute. But so that's why it's called aromatherapy. You've got to like the smell. Let's touch back on that. So I'm ranting here because you got me going. Is when we smell something, it goes to our limbic part of our brain.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you next. Explain
and that's our flight and fight in our limbic brain. So again, what I was just saying, if we smell lavender, everyone goes, but lavender's relaxing, but it's going to stress you out. And saying that, again, we have to bring in the dilutions. It's getting very complex because lavender actually
can be a stimulant.
Yeah. And it also depends on the lavender, on the chemical constituents, where it's growing. So there's so much more to it. So this is why it gets our blood boiled when people that aren't qualified will say, take that and take it internally, when they've got no idea about the chemical constituents of that essential oil.
And our body on the inside, our physical body, is basically chemistry.
Yeah.
So it is upsetting, or can upset, irritate our own body's natural chemistry, which can put a whole lot of stuff out of whack.
Yeah. And getting back to good old lavender is how it was discovered was in World War I, and the soldiers were, had all these wounds, and they would be crawling through the lavender bushes, and they realized that they were healing really well, and they weren't getting scarring from their wounds, because good old lavender is one of the best things to heal. What do you call it?
Burns. I was going to say there's another bit of history, and I can't remember the scientist's name, that was doing a lot of Bunsen burning with formulations, and the Bunsen burner boiled over the formulation that he was playing around with, and did literally scold him. So he had in a sink, because he was doing another experiment, pure lavender. It was pure. Don't do this at home, people. But this was pure lavender, and he dunked his hands in the lavender, and for 5 minutes or whatever it was, and then it came out and he had no scarring, and it was like a severe burn. So that is also then, of course, then he was it Salvador, what's his name?
I know.
Anyway, it was a very common, well-known, it wasn't just French, but Baccalaureate. Yeah, one of those scientists, because that's why he had all the essential oils there. Anyway, then it was renowned for the wound healing side of things. Don't use it neat, though, like he did. That was an emergency situation.
So getting back to why we blend them in a blend, it's like perfumery. That's where it's very similar. You can imagine a perfume is not just one note. So all these smells come together when they're adding all these different notes. But so with aromatherapy, we blend it like we would the olden days perfume. So like Vicky said, we'll have a top note, a base note, and a mid note. And the reason why we do that is it holds the smell together like a perfume. So basically we want to have that blend smell the same each time. And because why we're blending those 3 oils, or how many oils we're blending, is to last therapeutically as long as it would. And obviously 3 oils are going to be much more powerful, and we're adding all those different components like if you think of my Breathe and Relieve, I've added a calming, a nervine, mucilectin or expectorant property. That's why we blend that way.
So what you're saying is 3 oils, apart from the lasting smell, if you like, it also has that synergistic effect therapeutically. So you get more than just the effect of one essential oil has a lot of therapeutic effects, but then say you've got 3 together, you don't just get, if you added all those properties together, you get a much bigger result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can also add open up a can of worms, because you're making it a lot more dangerous, and again, a reason why you need to be qualified to use it. So it's much more powerful and a lot more therapeutic. And the dilutions are obviously, like we're talking about, are very very important as well. And because we've been doing it so long, we know what we're doing. So we know oils which will work together synergistically and for whatever ailment we are blending for. Have I covered all that off about?
Yeah. So actually, just to go back to your thing about smell and you must like it.
Oh, yes.
And I know, because that's a lot of psychosomatic stuff that I do too. It's a little bit about listening to your body, and this is a really good way you can check in. If you don't like the smell of something that you're going to put on yourself, or just even diffuse in a burner, chances are it's because of something, because it gets because when we smell it, it takes 4 seconds to reach that part of the brain that you were talking about before, Bronwyn. That's also where we hold all our memories, hence that trauma side of things, if you got bit by a dog. So you can reverse it, but it takes time. But just know that you will intuitively be attracted to smells that your body needs, because your body's always wanting to be in balance.
Yeah.
So say normally you don't like lavender, but Bronwyn makes a blend up for you and it's got lavender in it, and you're going, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing blend. And you'll go, oh, that's got lavender in it. Did you know? And then you'll be like, I'm so confused because I don't like that smell. It's because your body's needing it for whatever reason, either for calming or slightly stimulating or nervous system stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're such intuitive beasts, and it's anyone that's not holistic, I don't know how they don't know this, is that we knew so much, as in we, like I was saying with the cows, we were the same. Modern man was the same way back in the day. Ancient man. We knew how to address us, whereas kind of modern man has come so far that we've gone right away from our intuition. But as a pregnant woman, you got that back. I remember, there was essential oils that were like, oh no, that's too much.
Yeah.
And when you'd actually look into the properties of it, it would be because it was contraindicated to pregnancy, or there might be something
like all your herby ones like basil.
Yeah. And it is very interesting. And you know how, like, when you're pregnant, you might crave things like charcoal or something like that. And there's usually something in the plant. And don't forget, essential oils come from plants, so it could be also you're craving that particular herb, or it's not just you're not craving that plant necessarily for the smell, you just don't know it yet. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Well, to everyone. So I was going to say, the other thing I find, which is probably important, sorry to interrupt, Vicky, is when we're talking about dilutions, is the product it's going into, because that will actually dilute the formula anyway.
Yes.
So for an example, like I said, I as a rule, I'd put my Breathe and Relieve into a balm. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted it actually to stay on the surface, so much of it to stay on the surface of the skin and so much to penetrate. Whereas if you put it into, say, like a moisturizer, it's going to actually absorb straight into the skin. So that's what I kind of take into consideration as well, depending what I'm treating and how I'm doing it. So you can imagine I'm in my element. It's just real witchy stuff, and it's just such a lot of fun.
It's interesting too with your Breathe. So what have you got in there? German chamomile, lavender, and
Manuka.
Oh, Manuka, that's right. Because I was thinking when you were saying the blends, and for asthma, if you think about that personality type, those are oils like the German chamomile, Manuka, work on throat chakra. So throat chakra is all about how we communicate, how we feel, how we express what we're meaning to say, and also how we feel heard. And so my son is asthmatic. So I remember him as an asthmatic, he would get, it's like, panicky, and you, I know you can relate. So I'm relating from a person who doesn't have asthma. You have asthma, so it's a little bit different. So I would see him struggling, obviously with his breathing when he was younger, but it would always be times when he was stressed and felt under pressure. So that whole thing about communicating and expressing himself and saying what he wanted to say without being judged, those kind of things were really pertinent to the throat chakra. But those oils perfectly match and calm and balance that chakra. So see how it's not just the physical. Everything's always that physical, mental, which is what the thoughts that we have, and our emotional, with the way it makes us feel. And then that spiritual which is that intuition, that knowing that it's right for us.
Yeah. And let alone if we looked at German chamomile and lavender, they're one of the best nervines, and they're one of the best essential oils for calming tissue.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine the internal organs of someone that can't breathe. It's all going to be inflamed and full of mucus. And what happens is their bronchial tubes get get so inflamed that they get narrower and narrower. So it's not that necessarily that they can't, that is one of the problems, that they can't get the carbonated air out, but they can't get the fresh oxygenated air in, because they're breathing, it's like you're breathing, sucking through a straw, through sand kind of thing. Yeah. So then if you look at, if you were to kind of analyze the chill pill with clary sage, mandarin, and lavender, that's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and so from a chakra perspective, that works more on solar plexus. So that's our inner wisdom, motivation, vital energy, things that connect us to our purpose.
And it's
so
just
that would actually match with those. Yeah, that matches perfectly.
It's just basically saying, just chill the hell out. Well, yeah.
Exactly. Connect into what it's saying, connect into you. Don't worry about what everyone else is thinking about you. Connect to you and do what is right for you, because that's the right thing, because that keeps us in our zone of genius rather than, doing all the things that we're meant to do, ticking the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the clean and clear, which is sage, pine, and eucalyptus.
Yeah, and that's of course that's a breathing one. So, but it's also cleansing. So it's
that's kind of that's a real crossover.
Yeah.
You can also use it for like cleansing the air.
Yeah.
I don't mean necessarily purifying it. I mean as in bad vibrations.
Yes. Negative energies.
Yeah.
And so that can work a little bit more third eye, which is intuition. So it's just making you trust your gut. that sense that you need to just listen to your intuition and don't get into your head about it. Just go with the gut.
Interesting. I invented that one to I had in mind that someone needed to vaporize it to just change the energy in the room.
Yeah.
So quite often when I blend oils, I don't know about you, and I guess it's because we've worked with them for so long, but it's a real intuitive thing.
Yeah.
And some of my blends from years ago, like obviously my Breathe and Relieve, that was like one of the first ones I made because it was so dear to my heart, and I actually had to work, like there's not much more, serious than asthmatic, especially when you've just lost your mum from asthma. I kind of knew I had to kind of reach in deep. So some of them have been made from clients come to me with some problem, and then I've kind of over the years, there's been so many, and it's come out of that.
Yeah.
Like I was remembering one the other day. Oh, well, some of the obvious ones are Study Buddy.
Yes.
And that basically came when I was had my exam, and my daughter had terrible asthma. She was only 6 months old, and she was in hospital. It was really, really life-threatening. And so her aside, I had to go to this exam, and I had no sleep. I was sleeping on the hospital floor, and I had my full-on exam that I was so passionate about. And I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? This. And I know you'll probably relate to this, Vicky. If I'm so stressed or, sleep deprived, it's more the recall of getting all that information out and putting it down on paper. So I made a Study Buddy. And so what that does, it actually clears the mind of clutter, and it's memory recall and focus. So in there is rosemary, basil, and black pepper.
Ooh.
And I tell you, I put it on a tissue because we weren't allowed to take vaporizers or anything. Well, back then
You didn't even have the pulse point things you could have.
And I had it on a tissue, and I just overwrote, like where I could have written kind of a couple of sentences for 2 points. I'd write half a page, and I wrote. And it was funny because I got merit, and I think I've told you this story before, and I realized they'd marked me wrong. I won't get into what it was, that's another subject, but I was right. And so I went storing up and proved that I was right. So I ended up getting the distinction. So that's not too bad, which for no sleep.
Someone with no sleep.
Been totally stressed out and totally emotionally, so upset. I had this real sick baby in hospital. Yeah, so that's how my Study Buddy came. And then another one.
And that's the power of essential oils, literally from that memory recall by using those oils. Obviously we know rosemary for remembrance. That's why it's always there for the Anzacs. But yeah, all of that memory triggering, memory recalling, even when you're tired. So if anyone has a massive day at the office and they've had no sleep because they've got a project that they need to finish, and now they need to present it, which is usually the time when you're thinking, I need to get this out succinctly.
Yeah.
That could be a good blend.
Exactly. I mean, but you could also use the Clean and the Clear to clear the mind, but that one's more focused on the mind. So if you as a listener, you might be very totally confused, but you might start to understand a little bit more how it works. And then the Sporty Sorts, that one's relieving, warming, and flushing to the muscles. And so in there, I have things like the good old birch, the juniper, and the rosemary again.
Yeah, nice.
You can imagine, it's a real flushing one.
Yeah, that would be flushing. I don't know if I'd put that in the bath.
Oh, I wouldn't recommend putting in the bath unless I had my Aromasol synergy. But so I'd put that into an oil or a massage cream, or a body what am I saying? A body moisturizer, or a I've even done it as a balm.
I was going to say a balm would be really nice.
Yeah, so then they can actually have it with them at an event. Because I
Mm,
don't know about you, when I was younger, even particularly more than now, probably because I used to train a lot harder, I used to always have sore muscles because I'd just push them. And so
yeah.
I would actually rub my balm onto my muscles, and that would just be relieving.
Yeah. Yeah, I get sore muscles now if I do a race, let me tell you, because I've been pushing too hard. Like I will get that. That's the time when I will have a bath after I've run a race or something.
And
Because
that's what I meant to do all these years, but I've never got around to it. It's kind of really push it to sports people.
yeah.
Amazingly. I'll have to send you over some so you can try it.
Yeah, I would love to have some because of all the activation and stuff I take, it's not so bad, but it's just that general flushing after a race.
And
Yeah.
so you can imagine the Sporty Sorts one, from what I've just said is in there, you
Mm,
wouldn't use that. Like you could actually use that almost for breathing, but I wouldn't use that for, say, that instead of the breathe and relieve, because you imagine mainly because of you're rubbing it on the chest, and from what
yeah.
you said before, that is more likely to irritate. So that will give you an idea, people, too, of how different oils, how they, when they're combined together, they're even more potent. So
Yeah.
imagine me using the Sporty Sorts, like I could have, if I had one balm, I could use that, could be quite good for breathing.
Yeah.
You imagine how sensitive that skin would be from those
And
oils.
also thinking of when you've got something quite potent or quite concentrate, or yeah, they're quite potent oils. And then so you're rubbing them. So if you don't wash your hands properly, just to be clear,
Oh, yes.
then you go and touch your face or you rub your eyes. It's a classic. That is very stingy. So that's another reason why, little things to think of like that when you're doing your own blending. Sure, go experiment, but do it in dilution. Play around with oils, but do just make sure you wash your hands properly, thoroughly with soapy water to get rid of any oil. Soapy water.
The old liniment and camphor and
Yes.
stuff, like what camphor is actually a chemical from essential oils, and then they've taken that out and they've made it into, they're just putting that pure camphor into, it's usually crystallized, and then they put it into a product. I had a friend, so camphor works like what I was just saying with the rosemary and the juniper and stuff. But I had a friend that was playing soccer, and there was one of those containers of the liniment, which he thought was like a Vaseline for chafing.
Oh,
So he rubbed it between his thighs, and which got onto a bit of the boy bits.
yep.
And you can imagine what happened. He said he just ran. There was this big barrel of ice with the beer or something in it for after the game, and he just threw the beers out and threw himself into the ice because it was burning.
It would be burning. Gosh, you'd get your circulation going then, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So you can imagine they're very flushing. So that's how they work on the muscles, because when those oils that I was talking about before, the birch, juniper, and rosemary, is because when you're doing exercise, you make all that lactic acid, which is left behind, that the oxygenated tissue hasn't relieved. So that's what they do, is they flush it out.
Yes. And if you don't flush it out, you get DOMS, which is 2 days later, which is those really sore, tight muscles. So yeah, that's why it's important.
It's been an hour already.
I know. I knew that we'd talk forever on this because it's so cool and so amazing. So I just want to say, to finish off, so a lot of the women that I have in my clinic are going through perimenopause and menopause. And I find essential oils are so super powerful for them, just from that whole mood elevation side of things, because a lot of the symptoms that you go through earlier in menopause, you think you're going a little bit crazy because you don't know that it's perimenopause, or you haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So you think you're losing your mind, or you're depressed, or you're moody and irritable. So all those outside or you can't remember where you put your keys.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be normal anyway, but maybe you're just distracted. But if it is a constant memory thing, using essential oils when you get home, like if you can do a little pulse point roller, and you can just put it on your wrists, and then anytime during the day that you're feeling a little bit defragged, you can smell and it will pick you up. But then coming home after work and just lighting so I usually like to have a vaporizer that has a candle for those kind of situations. So it's a bit of a ritual. You light the candle and you choose your oils. And then that takes you out of that frame of busy work mode into, I'm just going to have a little bit of peaceful self-care time. And that might just be lighting the candle, because now you've got to get dinner and do all those kind of things. So using essential oils from a coping with everyday life side of things, as well as obviously all these things that we've been talking about earlier, which are a lot more, specific and therapeutic, which is so powerful in our lives. I cannot tell you. So integrating the two is phenomenal, but if you can only just vaporize, it's going to change your world.
Yeah, well, getting into women's hormones, I invented Disperse the Curse. And it's basically feminine energy or feminine balance with clary sage, geranium, and fennel.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So it basically replaces that, estrogen, or tops up your estrogen with the plant estrogen. And it's just really balances them. And I find it actually works beautifully. I've used it through all my 20s, 30s, 40s, because when I used to get real bad PMT, it was the only thing that would actually control those. I used to get really bad cramps and bloating.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd massage that in and directly onto my tummy, and I'd go the round circles the way my digestion, follow my digestion.
Clockwise. Yeah.
And clockwise, and it would just work like that. And I've made that up into a balm for so many people with whether it's endometriosis, but it works just as well when I was going, clients going through menopause.
Yeah.
And whether it was actually a physical symptoms, or whether it was just for a mental symptoms, or whether it was they just wanted to come back to self, it really well.
Yeah.
And so good old Disperse the Curse.
Yep, perfect.
Well, I think we better finish on that note, because we're just going otherwise.
I know. Hopefully listeners have got something out of they feel the need to maybe try and dabble, but carefully, as we expressed earlier. But vaporizing is a good way to start, and then go see a qualified aromatherapist to get you going and get into it. Enjoy.
Yes, and I'm sure we're going to talk again on it. We always bring something aromatherapy into our little podcast.
Yes.
But I think we'll leave it there. And if you could, have you got like a chart of the chakras that you could put up?
I have actually.
Send me to link with aromatherapy.
Yep.
Something like that. And so thank you, people. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Yeah. And those show notes will be, maybe we'll put some of your blends in there and my chakra chart. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so speaking of which, send it to me and I can do it to oils if you like.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've got. And did you get the one from last week?
I did. Yeah, I did. Last fortnight. Yeah. I am gonna today just finish off. I needed to finish off that editing for that one. And some of the other ones I've got to just go back and check those last couple of podcasts, because I saw a note in my files after a month they automatically delete, but I'm sure I've actually saved them into my Zoom folder. So I just need to go back and double check before I upload those other ones. Some of them are half edited and some of them are not.
And what I should look into when I've got some time, is if I could edit them.
Yeah, and I was wondering if I maybe put some in a Google Drive. Would that work?
Yeah. Probably, eh? And then if
'Cause
I
I've
learn
sent
how
you
to
the
edit,
intro and outro, but I could send them again. I think they're in that. Why don't I put the intro and outro into
all that with it.
Google?
Why don't you just send me a copy of the unedited ones anyway?
Okay.
You keep a copy, don't send, make sure you do
Yes.
just in case. And then I'll see if I might be able to, I don't know, not promising anything, but I might be able to, because sometimes I try things and it's like, oh, that worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had no luck with, I haven't contacted Fiverr, but I did speak to another VA and they were about the same.
Yeah, well, we'll get there, but yeah,
I don't think so.
if I can work out how to do it, might be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's just all through iMovie. I can send you my notes on how to do it.
And because if you can send me,
and then we can just alternate.
but if you can send me the podcast before they're edited anyway, then I can do the notes at least.
Yeah.
I did last week on just remembering what we talked about. I was like, oh God, if I left anything out, probably, but oh well.
I think I actually get a recording, but I haven't actually been going through that because I haven't had time for that.
Yeah. So maybe if you could just send it to me.
I could send it to you, yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Recording.
All right, hun.
All right.
Next
week is whatever it is. Not next week, but the following week.
Yeah, it's affirmations.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, cool. I'm hoping to get a whole lot more podcasts up this week. I've got a really quiet client week, so I'm hoping I can get the rest of
them done. We can both start to kind of push them.
Yeah, and then I'll probably end up with a whole splurge of them all at once, but at least they'll be up to date.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
See you.
Bye.